Welcome back to The Circle. Today, we're getting comfortable getting a little uncomfortable. We're exploring what it means to sit with discomfort, especially as it relates to challenging our limiting beliefs with new worldviews. Tim, are you ready to go all in?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Tim, over the last 2 weeks, we've explored limiting beliefs and the discomfort that comes with challenging them. What stood out to you the most in the circles that you led over the last 2 weeks? And were there any moments that really hit home for you?
A lot of them. The thing that stood out to me the most was when we identified our limiting belief, any one of us in the circle, and we tried to create the new occurring worldview, the positive reframe, the uplifted version of it, like the opposite. The most common thing that I heard was, well, that doesn't feel good and I don't believe it. And that was a thing that I could relate to, but then I realized, but there's a teaching in, well, you're not probably going to believe it right away. Now, first of all, wouldn't it be great if we could? To be like, oh, I've always thought I'm not good enough, and then I'm good enough.
Magic wand.
Yeah. Exactly. And so it was this idea that you're going to have to work with it, and it's going to be uncomfortable. Kind of a fake it till you make it situation where I have to come back over and over and over again and see how it feels. And then being open to the possibility that it might need to shift or morph a little bit until it actually kind of starts to fit. But the initial feeling, well, it's fake, not real, uncomfortable, feels like a lie. And so I immediately want to abandon it. Stood out to me because I'm like, oh, that's part of our messaging, that the practice is going to be sticking with it for a while. We won't even know how it's doing until we give it some time, which is true for so many things. You think about a workout regimen. I want to lose weight. I want to get bigger biceps, whatever the thing is. And you can't expect that after one workout, everything is what you wanted. That's not how it works. And this is the same idea. That's what stood out to me, because I think we need a context for the journey, the process, and that part of it will feel maybe a little fake or put on until it doesn't.
Yeah. There's a lot of discomfort in being patient and being disciplined. So my journey over the last 3 weeks, as we've been exploring this topic pretty deeply, not just in the men's embodiment circles here in Provincetown, but also in the men's work intensive that I'm a part of right now, have been very uncomfortable for me. And a part of it has been exactly what you're talking about, this almost like preconceived notion that I have, being a child of the 90s, of like instant gratification, right? Like I'm playing the video game and I want the level up. Like I want it to like happen immediately. And I am struggling with some of the reframed beliefs, because I'm like, they're not working. I tried them on, they fit really good, but like, why aren't they doing their magic? And then I have to sit and I have to rest with like, oh, right, this requires discipline. This requires patience, just like my fitness journey, right? Like I didn't lose 70 pounds overnight.
Right.
I lost 70 pounds over a year and a half.
And you probably needed to see the first 5 to then be like, oh, I did the first 5. I can do 5 more. So this brings me to a topic. I think I've spoken about it already, about The Secret. We talked about The Secret, that movie and that book about the law of attraction, right? And I can't tell you how many people I know that have read that book or watched that documentary or both, that thought to themselves, oh, well, I have to visualize a check for $1 million and then it's going to come to me. And like in the movie, they talk about, I visualized this feather of this bird, and the exact feather like manifested in front of me. That's all great. And I'm not suggesting that it didn't happen, but I know it didn't happen because you thought about it once.
Right.
Full stop. Or if you did think about it once, it's because you've been working with this practice and idea for decades. And now you're so good at manifesting that maybe you thought about it once. But the truth is, You want that check for $1 million? You can't ask one time. You have to ask over and over and over. Through repetition, the magic arises. This is what Sharon Gannon of Jivamukti Yoga, the co-founder of Jivamukti Yoga, the method or the lineage in which I am trained, would say that through repetition, the magic arises. So you have to do it over and over and over. And we live in a culture where I want to get the prescription and take the pill and be thin, or I want, to immediately be without pain. And I get it. I want that too. But I think the teachings are telling us, no, you have to come back again and again and again, over and over and over. And making that okay and saying, it's okay to be uncomfortable right now. This belief may not feel like it's totally right for you, but the way you're going to find out the belief that is right for you is through the practice of trying them on. You're never going to find it out by just not thinking it because it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. And something that I'm also hearing is like kind of this discernment between recognizing what is uncomfortable and something that I can bring discipline and practice to like work through and be on, while also having the discernment of figuring out like, oh, maybe that thing needs to shift or change a little bit. So in the context of New World Views, right? Like I've tried on a couple. So for the folks listening, I have a couple limiting beliefs that I'm working through. The primary one is that like I don't matter, that I'm gonna be left behind, that I'm gonna be forgotten, that I'm not important. So all these things that like the back of my mind is just constantly on repeat telling myself. And so I'm reframing it.
But the reframed version is from the very crisp I don't matter.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So from I don't matter, you went to
that I'm worth fighting for. And I tried that on for a little bit and I said, okay, like this kind of feels okay, but still feels a little uncomfortable. And I had to sit with the uncomfortableness of like, is it because it doesn't fit? And then I have to like wiggle it and like break it in a little bit, or is it because it's not the one? And so I've also tried as simple as I am important. I matter. Right? As just trying to figure out like, can I sharpen it up a little bit and like make it a little more specific that way? And those have also been a little uncomfortable. And then I've also just like played around with the idea of like moving away from like I am statements and played around with like, life in general, right? Like I've made my life so hard with these limiting beliefs. So let me try something out. Life is easy. Let me just tell myself, life is easy, instead of telling myself every day that life is hard because I have all of these limiting beliefs that are keeping me down. Let me try reframing it to life is easy.
Well, how did it feel?
That one is starting to feel comfortable.
How long did it take for it to start to feel comfortable?
Immediately. As soon as it happened. And that's again, the trick that or the discernment that I'm talking about is like, was I running away from the discomfort of these other limiting beliefs because they felt like they didn't feel good? And I was like trying to search for that pill, that magic pill that was going to make me feel good instantly, right? Like, did I lack discipline, or was I being truthful to myself and saying, no, I'm going to listen to this discomfort and actually try to find something else over here. And so that's kind of been my journey, is like, what do I want to sit with, and consciously choosing what do I want to sit with versus what might I want to explore.
Well, I think the important thing that you mentioned was that you recognized there was a discomfort in your original new occurring worldview, and you continued to work with it until something else bubbled up.
Yes.
As opposed to, it doesn't feel good, so it doesn't work, and I'm done with it. That, I think, whatever that is the important component. Well, you keep working until another thing pops up, another option, arises, and then you start to like try that one on. So it's a continual process.
Right. Like I didn't give up on the practice.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying different techniques within the practice, and I'm trying different things on within the practice, but because I still have faith, I still believe that what I'm doing is for my greater good. And so I still believe in the practice itself, and I didn't give up on the practice. I didn't say, I'm done with these new world views. I'm going to take down all of my index cards. And that's part of the work, is like through this exercise, writing down these, new world views and placing them up on mirrors and strategically throughout my apartment and kind of like confronting myself and confronting the discomfort on a daily basis, on a regular basis. So every time I go up and down the stairs, I have them like taped up there. And so that's kind of been like I'm not going through the house and like removing all of them, but I'm going through and I'm adjusting them. And I'm
Mm.
saying, okay, that one, like I've sat with that one for a couple days. It's still feeling a little uncomfortable. So let me like tune into myself. Why does it feel uncomfortable? Is it because I'm uncomfortable in this process, or is it because it isn't the one right now?
Well, a really big component of men's work is the ability and the willingness to have a relationship with the things in your life that make you uncomfortable, especially if those things matter to you and you care about them and you don't necessarily want to abandon everything that challenges you. And so we start to create this relationship where can I stick with something that's uncomfortable long enough to allow their space for transformation? If you think about a relationship, for example, every relationship I've ever been in, there's always been a moment when, oh, there's a tough conversation, an insight that is needed, an apology, or, even with the best of intentions, sometimes it can go a little awry. And imagine if we just walked away from it because it's uncomfortable. Like, no, you don't. You need the ability to stick with it, to speak your truth, to hear another truth, to own what is yours and take responsibility and do repair work. If we don't have the capacity to be a little uncomfortable, we will run from one thing to the next. And generally, we'll run from one problem to the next problem to the next problem because eventually they will come. And developing the skill set to meet that and to stay in it without crumbling is, I think, a main thrust of men's work and why we do it.
It's work that I'm deeply appreciating now because I do have a tendency to avoid. I do have a tendency to run. In this process alone, I've shared this with you, and I'll share it with all of you that like during this process, like I've felt myself starting to crumble in certain parts of my life, and starting to really look for the exit.
Mm.
Right, like burn it all down, run away. Right, because
Mm.
I'm sitting in the discomfort, I'm sitting in pain, and like I'm like things are coming up, and my default programming has been run away, like restart, reset. So like part of it is like I was like I'm in the process of closing down my shop here in Provincetown, and I was getting so overwhelmed. And a big part of me was like throw everything in the trash, destroy everything, bring it to the dump, like remove all traces so that I don't have to deal with the pain of my failure. I don't have to sit there and go through the memories of all the experiences that I've had, the good, the bad, right? Like that was a big part. I was like, that was my avoidant personality coming through hardcore, where I
Mm.
was like, oh, it's uncomfortable, or I'm going to experience discomfort while doing this process. Well, let me try to find the easy way out. Let me find the exit that is going to cause me the least amount of harm. But what that is going to do is exactly what you said. It's going to lead me to another problem. I
Yeah.
cannot keep running away from these things. And so I sat with it, y'all. I sat with it, and I like actually sat in the shop the other day, and I like categorized and inventoried and like organized things nicely. And I took photos of them and I put them up on the community space, up on the Facebook marketplace. And I have some buyers or some prospective people that are interested in like wanting these things that could like help them out and help me out as well to like find that closure and having the discipline to like sit with it and stick to it.
Thank you for sharing that. I would like for us to all reflect in this moment on the majority of the people in our lives in the world that we admire. Often, like, my favorite example is, of course, always an Olympian, right? But even successful people in business and, um, what these people have in common is their ability to live in and work with a discomfort. And now there are so many kinds of discomfort. So we're not just talking about physical discomfort, but emotional and intellectual, financial, like, circumstantial, all kinds of discomfort. But the willingness to work through it, generally in pursuit of a purpose. So when we think about the Olympian, my favorite example, it's so easy for us to idolize and admire the gold medalist. And that person gets to step up onto the podium. They get the medal and the flower. They get the flag and the anthem. They get that moment. And that moment, as I've observed it, lasts, 2 or 3 minutes for the ceremony. And let's say that they get a week or two of like walking around the Olympic Village feeling amazing, but what it took, all the times that they didn't sleep in, all the times that they made dietary choices or, jumped into the pool or went to the gym when they were tired, all the parties that they missed, and we have to remember, that is part of what got them there. And so when we see that, we realize if we could create a relationship with our own discomfort and a relationship with our own edges so that we become clear about when we are choosing or not choosing something versus running or hiding, I think we're going to live a more empowered life.
The perseverance of an athlete like that, of an Olympian, that's the word that kept coming up to me as I was hearing you talk about that, was perseverance in pursuit of passion or purpose, right? Like something that like keeps going. So even if the ceremony, even if the celebration is only 2 minutes long, that impact of that moment is going to compound for the next challenge that comes up. Like it's still going to be like in that person's like core, right? Like, oh, I did all of that, right? I have proved that I am strong and I can do hard things. Like what happens when the next thing comes up, right? And in the case of an Olympian, maybe it's not something physical, maybe it's something emotional or mental, right? That's the thing that like could be like a really big challenge for them. Maybe something physical is like an easier thing for them, right? Maybe something comes up, but that they can bring that practice, they could bring that experience. It's in their body now, right? Of that perseverance. I know what it's like to persevere through something.
I think it's likely that a person who has persevered through discomfort in one area of their life can apply at least part of that to a different area of their life.
Absolutely. It's been coming up for me as I've like been working through this and like working through some physical discomfort recently. And I'm like, I know that like I have like an intellectual resiliency, working on my emotional resiliency and my feelings resiliency. But my physical resiliency, has been a challenge for most of my life. And it has been through recognizing that I have persevered through so many other things that I can bring that loving attention to like a physical practice that may, cause me to crumble.
Right. And so in men's work, we very consciously put ourselves in these moments of challenge near our edge, physically, emotionally, with breath and, all kinds of tools and instruments to get greater clarity about our relationship with it. Now, I'm curious, there's a lot of queer people who I would argue are very familiar with discomfort from a lot of levels and a lot of places. And so what would you say about taking that experience, whatever it might be, and reframing it or turning it so that it can become a practice and a power and a source of authentic expression?
I'll just speak from my own experience. Like it is me recognizing that I am stronger than I know. I am stronger than I have given myself credit for. I am stronger than other people have given me credit for. And like the moments of discomfort in the past I've been a runawayer. I've been a quitter. I said this the other day in Circle, like I'm a quitter. I am somebody that will like will give up very quickly, especially physically, right? If I was asked to do push-ups and do like 2 push-ups, and then all of a sudden I'd start getting uncomfortable and I'd be like, can't do it, done, right? I'm even though I'm sure if I had applied myself a little bit more, I could have gotten to number 3, maybe even 4. And I've proven to myself over and over and over again that I could. Actually, this summer, I gave myself a challenge. It was a pull-up challenge. I'd never been able to do a pull-up growing up. I was a very overweight kid, did not enjoy physical activity at all, right? I'm definitely like Newton's law of motion, right? Like an object at rest stays at rest, right? That's where I was. Like I was very comfortable being at rest. And so I was working through some things this summer, and one of my challenges to myself was like, I want to see if I could do a pull-up. First one, couldn't do it. Couldn't even could barely like do an inch. But I went back every day. I was doing them down at the beach at a dock where I could jump up and like grab onto a 2x4 and like see if I could like pull myself up. So me and my dog would go on the beach and I would like challenge myself. And I did this every morning for a month. And by the end of the month, I was doing over 10 pull-ups. And I was so happy with my progress and so happy with myself because I was stronger than I gave myself credit for. And I sat with it and I tried. And like it was so uncomfortable at first. And like I can apply that to so many areas of my life of like being so uncomfortable in so many situations. And like just reminding myself that I'm stronger or I have the capability if I truly want something, then I have the means within me to like work through the discomfort because I know that on the other side is something that I could be super proud of and, happy with.
And it occurs to me that an understanding that most of us experience discomfort and have this process and a desire to run away from it and could be comforting for people who are in severe discomfort and don't know what to do or maybe don't have resource. So I'm thinking a lot of like queer people who might have to leave their homes or change their lives in order to be who they are. And just knowing that you're not entirely alone feels like one step. But then allowing a person the space to claim and discuss their discomfort and what is happening for them feels like another important step. So hopefully that's part of the process to be like, you're allowed to be uncomfortable and you're allowed to tell people you're uncomfortable and ask for help. And the more we are aware of the discomfort that we have persevered through, likely the more empathy will bring to a person going through what we once went through. So the kind of bringing to our community a conversation about this, especially in this moment when there might be a lot more discomfort coming.
And I love that of like just sharing openly that like it's okay to experience discomfort. We all experience discomfort. And I think, the severity of situation aside, like I think that just being able to relate that like, oh, you've gone through something challenging and you sat through it, like that may give me a little bit of like ease to understand that like, oh, like this person has something in common with me. And I also think about like even the athlete, like I typically don't look at an Olympian or somebody with that level of empathy that like, oh, they've gone through a bunch of things of uncomfort or discomfort, right, to make it through that. I'm like, oh, they're like naturally gifted and like they have an entire team behind them. And I think of all these negative things that I can tell myself about it. And I don't actually think about the times that they've experienced discomfort because many times, at least for me growing up, those superstars didn't reveal that. Right.
Right.
And so
we live in a culture where we want our heroes to be Superman. We want them to, be impenetrable and just shining and like, unaffected by the lowly things of pain and struggle. But the truth is, they had to, that's how they got there.
Yeah. And I think like just me now, like processing that, like realizing that, like I start to build that a little bit more like empathy and like appreciation for that effort, right? Like just because, somebody hasn't expressed that they had a bunch of moments of discomfort, I can imagine that they probably have. Right. And I hope, like it would be my hope that we can all just express when we are going through a little discomfort a little bit more frequently. And I think because it gives motivation, it inspires me to be like, oh, like that person didn't get there. That person didn't just like magically like be the best. That person didn't magically be the best athlete or the most spiritual enlightened person, right? It took time and it took discipline and it took an insane amount of time sitting in discomfort.
It also took, and this is a point I like to drill home for everyone doing embodiment practice and yoga practice and personal growth practice. It required those bad days. It required the bad practices. And so we just had someone last night talking about their experience in the circle and how transformative it was. And I think anyone who's ever meditated has had that sit or a few sits where you're like, whoa, like that was amazing. The time flew by. I was, deeply connected, or it felt good somehow. But there are so many other ones that are tricky or challenging, or you're like, I don't want to do it, or this is hard, or I feel that droplet of sweat. But in my yoga training, there was this ant crawling on me and I was going to go crazy. I'm like, oh my God. But so much value in persevering through those moments. And so I think almost every time in circle, I will say like, I'm really glad you had a great, delicious, beautiful experience. They're so important because they will nourish us and encourage us to keep going. But you're going to have to remember it in that moment when you're like, ugh, that one was rough.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it, or I didn't like it, or I was tired, or, because there's value in that too.
Absolutely.
And when I think about my training as a dancer, all of the ballet classes I took and all of the modern dance classes I took and the partnering classes, and I would have classes where I'm like, I feel amazing. I feel great. I'm going to be a star. And then so many others where you're like, I feel terrible. I don't, and I think I saw this somewhere, like the law of thirds, where if a third of the time you're feeling great and a third of the time you feel kind of middle and a third of the time you're feeling bad, then you're pretty much on track, because it is unreasonable to think that in any process in pursuit of something we care deeply about, we're going to feel great all the time. Because growth doesn't really work like that. Something's coming up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's coming up?
It's just beautifully said. I think I'm just realizing now in this moment that like I've either had so many expectations to like want my life to be like 90% good, right? And like I've pushed away and avoided the neutral and the uncomfortable, or my life has been full of uncomfortable moments that I can't see the light at the end. And it's like, it's just the beautiful reminder that like, yeah, life is a balance, and it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to be okay. And it's okay to be good. And like, it's just like the way that you said it, it just hit me. And I was like, oh yeah, you can relax, Eric. It's okay to not be okay. And then if it happens more than a third of the time, maybe then ask for a little bit of help. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think this is really built into the concept of contentment. Contentment as this idea of, a high achieved state, because contentment doesn't mean that you don't have challenges, doesn't mean you don't have responsibility, or that you don't have to wake up earlier than you want sometimes, or any of that. But it's this sort of overarching sense of like of awareness of what is happening and why it's happening, and there's a sweetness to it that is grounded in reality. Oh, I have to wake up at 5:30 this morning, and I would love to sleep until 7, but you have this awareness, so I can still have contentment even when I am having to work hard, or do something a little uncomfortable. And then I can still have moments of incredible sweetness, and maybe even sweeter because they are juxtaposed to the moment that was a little more challenging. I just keep thinking right now, my Tuesday mornings are the morning I don't have to wake up. And every other morning I wake up pretty early, but sometimes like earlier than others. And sometimes it's a little uncomfortable, but I don't wake up on those mornings in a bad mood. I'm not angry about it. I have a contentment around it. But then on Tuesday, there's a sweetness where I have no alarm set. And I know when I wake up, I have my morning routine, but there's a cold brew waiting for me and I don't have to hurry. It's that. It's not that I don't have stuff to do later that day or that it won't be hard. Contentment. Yeah.
Really sweet, delicious, just
cold brew.
An unhurried cold brew.
So yummy.
A just leisurely morning.
Yeah.
Is sometimes the sweetness and it can be, the reward.
But I think, so the whole reason I brought that up is I think that contentment comes with a recognition that there will be times when it is challenging. There will be times where it feels kind of neutral, and there will be times when it feels not good. And if what I think is that I should only ever exist in the third of the time where it feels good to great, then I will be disappointed when it doesn't feel good to great all the time. But if I recognize, I'm existing in the spectrum and there will be days where it feels better and other days where it won't, then I can celebrate the small victories. I can celebrate the moment that I went to the gym and did a workout, even if it wasn't the greatest workout I've ever done, because it was better than no workout. Right? I can search it, and I've seen this in my clients, and I'll remind them, be like, I'm glad you had a great workout, but yesterday's was great too, even though you're not having the same experience. And we start to think of things in this broader view. So this idea of being comfortable with discomfort, but then also celebrating a little bit of discomfort because, it's from growth. Like this discomfort is propelling me towards truth and understanding. Otherwise I could just maybe stay where I'm at.
It was a beautiful moment from Circle last night, was that reminder of Tim closed practice last night with that invitation to celebrate ourselves for making it through, for sitting through discomfort through several challenging practices. And it was a really beautiful exercise. And, your Tuesday morning routine also sounds like that. It's a celebration, right? And I am guilty of this. I do not celebrate nearly enough. I am a go, go, go type of person, and I'm always on to the next. And I think just taking, even if it's just that 2 minutes of, the Olympics celebration is only 2 minutes at the podium, right? Just taking it, celebrating it in whatever it is that I've persevered through, right? I think we'll go a long way for me.
And let's make it less grand, because most of us are not going to get that Olympic moment, but we can take a second to celebrate. I went to the gym, and going to the gym is hard for me. Or for me, I'm not a home, do it yourself kind of person.
No DIY from Tim here.
I mean, I would like to get better at it, and but I'm not great at it now. And but my life circumstance right now is such that I have to try to figure out solutions. And so I found a solution yesterday. If I were to tell you all that's watching or listening what the solution is, it would feel fairly unimpressive. But okay,
I want to hear it. Let's celebrate.
So
let's celebrate it.
There was this key in a lock, and the key broke off in the lock. And I'm like, I have to get that broken key out of the lock, and I don't know how to do that. And so I had to try to figure out how to do it. I got every tweezer in my house. I was trying a whole bunch of stuff. I was really uncomfortable because I'm like, should I know how to do this? Should I know who to call? How much does it cost to have someone do this? But then I figured it out. I did have the help of a friend, but I figured it out. And then I said, okay, there was a thing I didn't know how to do, and I used my skills and figured it out. I can celebrate that.
Absolutely.
And now maybe I'll be more prone to figuring more things out, which I'm going to have plenty to figure out in the coming weeks and months, and reminding myself that it is possible helps. So it's part of the practice. And so we talk about this in yoga. Part of the yoga practice, there's a sutra, Sthira Sukham Asanam. We've talked about this. The connection to the earth should be steady and joyful. And so part of the practice of yoga asana is practicing steadiness and practicing joyfulness. People will forget that. We are supposed to practice joyfulness. I believe we're supposed to practice contentment, and we're supposed to practice celebration in conjunction with practicing our relationship to discomfort. So that in real life, we're in an embodiment circle and we're all in chi generator and it's challenging. Well, that chi generator is helping us create a relationship with discomfort so that when I'm going through a divorce and whatever comes up there, or I have a deadline at work and whatever comes up there, or, whatever, I am with context on how I am in those moments. Because none of us could ever control how other people are in those moments, but there's power in knowing how you are. Oh, so what do you need? In order for me I've been here before, I've been in discomfort before, and I know what my triggers are or what my habits are. So what do I need? Oh, do I need to take a 5-minute break? Do I need to call my friend? Do I need a glass of water? Do I need to go into the bathroom and shake? Do I need, what do I need? And so when I talk to people about doing the practice, it's for that reason, because the thing is, embodiment circles can be uncomfortable. They will bring us to our edge. And so sometimes people are hesitant to do it, a little bit like a detox, where I do a detox and sometimes initially you feel worse before you feel better. They're like, well, I'm starting to feel bad. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, but the alternative is you are playing craps with your life. And every interaction you have is a roll of the dice, and probably like the rule of thirds. Occasionally that dice roll will be, medium, and occasionally it'll be amazing and congratulations, but sometimes it's going to be really bad. So rather than having it up to chance, what if you had some tools? What if you had some practices and some things you could do so that you could be more content? That's why we do this work.
And thank you for sharing about your example with solving the key problem.
I was so embarrassed.
It's congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big,
thank you. The key is out and the lock works.
All right. Wait. So it actually reminds me, I had an uncomfortable moment the other day. We were doing a yoga practice.
You and I?
You and I.
Okay.
And my yoga strap came
I
undone
remember.
because I was using it, my yoga mat strap. So
it was not, to be clear for the listeners, you were using the strap to carry your yoga mat, which is not a yoga strap.
Yeah. It's
it's over the shoulder, it's like a carry harness.
It's like a shoelace with plastic clips. It's not glamorous.
It is not a yoga strap.
It is something that I use to carry the yoga mat around, and I was using it as a yoga strap, and I was using it to stretch, and I
love that you straightened your legs right here as you
what I thought was as I was doing it, I was trying to bend over, and it broke, it snaps, and I was like, oh crap, how am I gonna all these things? So after we finished our practice, I sat there and I was trying to fix it, and I was giving myself, because my instinct was throw it away, run away, abandon, right, exit lever. So much of my history has been throw it away, start over, right? Oh, I'll just go find another shoestring to use. It's fine. And so that was my default, but I was like, no, sit with it, try to fix it. And so I tried a couple of times, and I even told you, I was like, I'm going to give myself 2 more times before I hand this over to you. And I tried 2 more times, and then I had the humility to say, Tim, I cannot figure this out. Can you help me? And then I handed it over to you, and you tried a couple times and you're like, well, okay, like, let me try to figure this out. And then you grabbed a tool, you grabbed a fork, and you like poked it through, and like it ended up working. And like we saved the yoga strap that's not actually a yoga strap. Right. But it was just like an example of like persevering through something that was like causing me a lot of discomfort in a lot of ways, layers of discomfort. Right. The first one was like, okay, I'm just going to throw away my problem. I'm actually not going to like face this.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm going to try to face this. And then it was like, okay, I'm trying and I'm not succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have a choice. I can either throw it away or I can ask for help. Hugely uncomfortable for me. I hate asking for help.
So I have a few things to say, but first thing would be, I think we've all been there where I'm feeling stressed, or I'm having a sensation about a thing, and it can impact my ability to solve that thing. So I think the solution I found was not unavailable to you. It might have been unavailable in that moment because of all the other things sort of going in your mind, right? The other thing I would like to say, and the other value of men's work, and why I think men's work is so important, or, shamanic yogic embodiment work for all people is so important, and specifically for queer men, is because it's also these moments start to hone our ability to choose our tools. So if I'm a painter and I have an easel, I have to decide what color I want for what it is I'm trying to create. So in the story, the thing you didn't mention, which we're going to talk about because it was that I asked you to hand me my yoga bag. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then what did I do?
You pulled out a real yoga strap for me.
I provided you with an actual yoga strap,
Yeah.
right? And so I was happy to offer it because I knew it was there, and it was going to help. But also, the more we start to work with our edges, and the more we start to practice with our tools, going all the way back now to these like new occurring worldviews, and like thinking of them as a tool, and you start to practice it with it, and then you're like, well, is this the right tool? Or do I need to switch it to make it the right tool? So we can be compassionate as we go through that process, because how will I know what tool I need until I try? So going back to the lock, I used tweezers. They weren't the wrong tool, but they weren't the right tool. And then Gordon came over with a very particular kind of tweezer, much thinner and more narrow. And that was the solution. So now moving forward, if I ever see that problem again, I'll be like, oh, the tweezers that I use for my eyebrows are not going to work. Almost certainly, unless it's a giant lock,
Yeah.
I'm not beating myself up that I didn't know that, or that I didn't have those tweezers, but I can celebrate that I know it now. I should probably get a pair of them. I don't, I have a lot to learn, you guys, about like do-it-yourself stuff. But right, it's ongoing journey. So the more I'm aware of what makes me uncomfortable, the more I'm aware of my own capacity, and the more that I'm willing to practice with tools, especially in the beginning when they're uncomfortable, the more I will understand what works for me, where my limits are, and how to make choices around that so that I am crumbling less and choosing more. That's really where we want to be. I want to start to make powerful choices, and I want everyone listening and practicing with us to be able to do that too. It isn't a light switch. You don't go to bed and say, tomorrow I'm going to make powerful choices. No, you need context. Well, what does a powerful choice mean to you? And just think about that in the context of your own life. A powerful choice in service to your physical health, and a powerful choice in service to your mental health, and a powerful choice in service to the health of all of your individual relationships, and a powerful choice with regards to your career and work. They can all be so different. And your relationship with them, we have to have room to practice. And part of practicing is failure. The ability to try something, so not really failure, but the ability to try something and allow it to maybe not be the thing you ultimately decide. So I'm going to try this tool. Is it the tool that I need right now? Well, I won't know until I try it. But if in 3 days or 5 days you realize it's not the tool, you haven't failed. You just get to choose a new tool. And like, I'm going to invite you, if you're open to it. You and I have talked recently about you changing your morning practice, not because your morning practice was wrong,
Correct.
but because through having worked with it, you realized in this moment you might need something else. And I don't want, then I'll let you talk. It may be the case that shortly thereafter you could go back to it. It isn't like an all or nothing, like I'm done forever necessarily. It can be this sort of evolving process. Would you share a little bit?
Yeah. So listeners, what Tim is referencing is that, like, you know, I have had a morning routine and ritual for several months now. And recently, I've been feeling, you know, wanting to like pull the exit lever, right? So I let in a little bit about, you know, kind of those feelings that have been surfacing. And part of that the other day was like wanting to throw everything out the window because I was recognizing that something is not working in my life. And so what I did was I said, okay, like I'm going to drop one of my practices. So I dropped one of my practices one day. It was morning pages because I was developing a resentment to them, because I couldn't bring devotion to them anymore. I was doing them out of obligation. I was doing them out of obligation to myself. And I was not feeling good about that. And so I was like, okay, like, let me just prove to myself that like I have autonomy here, that like I can choose to do them or not. So I chose not to do them. I was like, okay, let me go through my day and like see how it goes. And I started to have a little bit of a spiral, and it's fine. But I also had some really good moments. And the next morning I was like, you know what? I think I need to drop all of my practices. Not saying that I'm not going to do a morning practice, but I'm not going to do those specific practices in that specific order. And I gave myself permission to flow within a container that I set myself for an hour. I said, I'm still committed to doing morning practice. I just don't know exactly what they are. I'm not going to list them out, and I'm not going to say I'm going to do this, then this, then this, then this. I'm just going to feel into what it was that I wanted to do. And that was so liberating and so juicy. And it really like reshaped recommitted to like my morning practice just by doing that and giving myself that permission. Because just like, you know, like I'm not the same person I was yesterday. I'm not going to be the same person tomorrow. I can change and shift and adapt. And I think like giving myself that permission through something like this has been a super beneficial realization for me, because I do tend to be very rigid, very structured, very way on the like the masculine side of polarity, and like giving myself that permission to be like, you know what, I can rest a little bit in not having a super tight plan. Still giving myself a little bit of structure, but it doesn't have to be so regimented.
Right. Well, we've talked about it can't be no structure.
Yeah.
And it can't be no flow. There's always yin and yang. There's always yang and yin. And so for people listening, a reminder, the choice that Eric is discussing right now isn't one where I don't like it, so I stopped. It was, I've been doing it, and now I get to engage in a exploration of if it is of service to me in this moment. So it could sound like quitting, right?
I mean, that's how I interpreted it at first.
Right.
I was like, I'm quitting on this. Yeah.
Right. And so we have to make sure that quitting and conscious choosing can look the same, but I believe that their origin is wildly different, and understanding that origin is part of our spiritual practice. Because if I choose to try something else, if I choose to reword my new occurring worldview from my limiting belief to see if it fits better, I'm not saying my previous one is a failure. In the same way that I would say that no one climbing a ladder or a staircase looks down and says, "Oh, that fucking first step, you're such the dumb first step. Like, you know, you're like, I don't need." No, you needed step one.
Get to step two.
For step two, for step three, You don't get to step 25.
Are you in my AA program right now?
Fuck you, step 1. Oh, am I doing? Oh shit! Like all the steps, right?
Yeah. Like you literally need step 1 to get to step 2, and like as uncomfortable as each of the steps are, you go through them. And
right. Okay. So I did not realize I was making an AA reference. However, there's a lot of genius in all of that. Yeah.
100%.
So right. So when you're on step 10, you're not mad at step 1.
I mean.
Well, again, I'm not speaking about this from the experience of someone who's in AA.
I think you can be mad at step 1. It's not that like, I think like we got to give ourselves permission to be like, you know what? Like step 1 sucked.
Wait. Right. But are we mad at step 1, or are we recognizing that step 1 was a challenging step to take? Because I think those are two different things. I'm not mad at the beginner level ballet class that I started when I first started. I'm not like, you're a stupid beginner ballet class and I like, fuck you, beginner ballet. No, I'm like, I needed that class to get to the intermediate class, to get to the advanced class, to get to the college, to get onto Broadway. And like, so when I look back on it, I'm like, well, was it hard and scary and uncertain? And did I want to be better than I was right away? Yeah, all of that. But am I mad at you? No. It's like, yeah, I'm like, it's like being mad at, I don't know, a number or a letter, or like, you're like, it doesn't make any sense. You're like, you were just part of this.
Part of the sequence.
Yeah. And it's okay if it was hard. Mm-hmm. And I think we can recognize that it was hard, or unpleasant or challenging. But am I mad at you? I don't know. Now, again, I'm not speaking about this from an AA perspective. Yeah. So there might be a teaching that I don't know where you should be mad at step 1. No. I don't even know what step 1 is.
I think it's recognizing, honoring that I can dislike something.
It can be uncomfortable.
Right. But
guess what? When people go on diets and then they're like, look at all the weight I lost, I look incredible. Well, I have to imagine there were a few moments where you were hungry or you wanted that fucking cookie.
Yeah, day 1 sucked. Day 2 also sucked because,
I would actually argue day 1's probably not so bad because you're like, I'm going to change my life. It's like day 2 and day 3, you're like, I want ice cream.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say is that like, I think I could like, for me, I'm just going to speak to me. Like I could be mad at something that I didn't like to do. Right. Like I can be mad at step 1. I can still hold on to that. Like I can I could have been mad at ballet class 1 because I don't want to do it again. Right. Like, and I think it's a recognition of my emotion, right? I'm not like resentful against it, but I can have a little anger. I can have a little anger towards it that was a really shitty experience and I hated going through it. And like I'm just going to honor that. Right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, but I do think we're saying something slightly different because, when I think about the first few times I took ballet, which was uncomfortable and scary, especially as a boy, where like, are people going to call me names or make fun of me? There did have to be something about it that I loved, or I wouldn't have gone back. So I think I think anger is really important. I think it can be a beautiful motivating factor. I think we want to be true about our own experience, but I think in pursuit of purpose, it feels rare that I would be angry at any necessary step. Feels like I might be angry
in the moment. Could you be angry in the moment? Like I've been.
Yeah, angry. I could look back. So I could look back and say I was angry in that class. Mm-hmm. But like, am I angry that I had to do the beginner ballet before I did the intermediate ballet? No. Could I be angry at a teacher who I thought wasn't meeting me in the ways I needed? Maybe, but like, am I angry that I had to learn the basics of yoga asana before I started teaching it? No. Were there moments when that was uncomfortable or I wanted to do it faster or be better at it already? Yes. So I think it's important to honor our emotions. And I feel like that's what I'm hearing you say. And I think maybe you and I just have different like phrasing around, because I'm not angry about it, even if there were moments when I was angry. And there were definitely moments when I was angry because we were like, turn your leg out. And I'm like, I don't even know what you mean.
Yeah.
So there are moments where I'd be like, that's frustrating to me because, I'll just quick little, when my mother tried to teach me how to drive a manual transmission, and I love my mom. So everyone watching, I love my mom. Mom, I love you. I know you're definitely not watching this episode or even know that I have a podcast, but I love you. But I would not recommend my mom being the person to teach you how to drive a manual transmission. And so she would just say like, well, you just have to feel it. And I was like, I can't imagine a less helpful cue. I don't know what you could say that would help me less, since what you're asking me to feel is a thing I've never felt.
Yeah.
So you just have to feel that moment, and then I wouldn't do it. And then she, instead of saying it in another way, potentially offering me another like way of conceptualizing this phenomenon I'm supposed to understand, she would just say, you just have to feel it. And then she'd be like, don't get frustrated. Okay. So for people who are listening or watching, I cannot drive a stick. I do not know how to drive a manual transmission, in large part because that process was so frustrating that I was like, I'm not going to do it. And thank God I moved to New York City to become a professional dancer, because then I haven't owned a car because I had the subway for 25 years. So it hasn't negatively impacted me, but I have thought about, if I go on The Amazing Race, I would have to learn, because we've seen so many episodes where people lose because they don't know how to drive a manual transmission. Okay.
So I'm about to do a public offer. Okay. My Jeep, Miss Cynthia, who's sitting outside, is a manual transmission. And so I'm going to offer to Tim Bish over here, as he is so good at offering all of us opportunities to meet our edges and to sit in some discomfort. I'm going to offer him an opportunity to meet that challenge.
Well, what is the greater good?
And I, so that when you're on The Amazing Race, you know how to drive a stick shift.
Okay, listen, if I get booked on The Amazing Race, then I want those lessons. Okay. No, I should. Listen, I should.
Can you reframe your should?
No, do I want to? I don't know.
Will you choose to?
I would like the ability to jump into a car. I imagine this scenario in which I'm like saving the day. I'm in like my real world, like superhero moment. And I jump in the car and I can drive it. So yes, I choose to learn, but we need to negotiate on the time frame.
Of course.
I don't think I want to try this week. I don't think I want to try right away. I want to feel.
You want to go right into the
I want to feel more grounded in other aspects of my life before I start doing that, because my recollection is a frustrating one with my mom. So please don't say things like "just feel it" and "don't get frustrated." Can you wait? Okay, so can you just guarantee that you won't say that?
I will not say "don't get frustrated." I will never invalidate your feelings. Like I will try hard not to do that.
So what would we say? Like, I recognize you're feeling frustrated right now.
Yes, and that it is a frustrating learning experience. I will, however, have to say, you're gonna have to feel when the clutch.
Yeah, there's
right. That I will. Can I invite
you to find 3 or 4 different ways to verbalize that?
I will give you as many cues as I can about what you might feel in your left foot as you're engaging and disengaging the clutch. I will do my best. But it is a feeling that you do have to recognize. And we'll do that in a very safe, controlled place where like you can see. I mean, like I was driving, where were we driving? Oh, to the photo shoot on Monday night, right? And I stalled the Jeep in the parking lot.
I remember.
Right? Like it was so embarrassing.
I've been giggling. I've been giggling ever since.
Yeah. Like I've been driving sticks since I was 15 years old and I still stall. But like we can do that so that you can stall the Jeep in a way that like you recognize where that moment is.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm willing to embrace some discomfort.
Yay.
In service to growth. And I feel like that's what we've been talking about today. And I just want to recap that a lot of the work we do in men's work is specifically that. And when I think about men's work or when I think about yoga, I think about them as a life workshop, it's life practice, right? So we put ourselves in stressful or challenging situations so that we can practice how it is we are, who we are in those moments. And so in the yoga mat, if you get to a really challenging place and you start to negative self-talk or want to give up or want to run away or want to get angry, the yogi recognizes those patterns, asks themselves if it is serving them, and then tries to choose something that is of service if those things are not. And so that is what we're doing here. And so it isn't that all spiritual or personal growth work or men's work has to always be about discomfort. But the truth is, we live more fully when we can navigate the inevitable discomforts that will come through life. Because if all our life was a series of lovely, happy circumstances, then we wouldn't need any of this. And the thing is that it isn't that way. So our ability to navigate, manage, communicate with, and recognize challenging moments is our power. And then when we have that awareness, extending it to other people is the power of compassion and empathy. So this is why we do it.
I just want to thank you for helping me experience so many moments of discomfort over the last year. Like, truly, like
you want to thank me for helping you feel uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
A heartfelt thank you, because without them, like, I would have given up a lot more. I would have thrown in the towel way more. I would have reacted way more.
Mm-hmm.
I am now bringing in conscious choice into my life on a more regular, routine basis because of the discomfort that you have offered me. So,
well, and I just want to throw that back and say, it is my intention in this life to help people do what you just described, but I must offer so much gratitude to all of the teachers in my life who have done the same thing for me. And the only reason why I'm able to offer it at all to anyone is because it was modeled to me by powerful teachers of all kinds. And so I couldn't even list them all right now, but I've like a deep appreciation and gratitude to every teacher in my life that has helped me understand how to persevere in pursuit of my purpose and my deepest, most authentic expression and life.
With that, I'm feeling very complete. How about yourself?
I also feel complete.
Will you take us out?
I will do. Let's close our eyes and take a deep inhale. Gentle exhale through the mouth. And it is with deep appreciation and gratitude for this conversation, this circle, this community, that we were able to engage and hopefully find insight, knowledge, awareness, perspective. And as we leave this circle, I wish everyone love, community, safety. And with these words, our container is open, but not broken. Aho.
Uh-huh.